everyday items like toothbrushes and toasters could get a little cheaper from July as the Treasurer removes taxes on hundreds of imports. Trudy McIntosh is live at the desk, and interesting discussion around this, some questioning the impact, but the government says this is a good move to get rid of red tape.
Well, a healthy level of scepticism out there as to how much we'll actually see these goods come down from July. The Treasurer, to be fair to him, is not saying there's going to be a massive reduction here, but he did point out that there should be a slight price reduction for some of these goods. Now, this is tariffs on around 500 or so products. Now, they're called nuisance tariffs because they're essentially there dormant. They cause compliance issues for businesses, but if they're covered by a free trade agreement, these goods aren't subject to the tax anyway. We'll show you some of the examples that the Treasurer used today when it comes to everyday items. If you look at a toothbrush, for example, the annual imports at the moment into the country around $84 million, but less than $22,000 of revenue is raised. When you come to toasters, it's even more farcical. $49 million of toasters are imported, less than $1,000 of revenue per year. This was Treasurer Chalmers this morning touting the potential for cost of living relief as a part of this and some of the scepticism we've seen.
Nuisance tariffs strangle productivity and weigh business down in red tape with very little return, and that's why we are eliminating almost 500 of them. And also, and I don't want to overstate this bit, it will provide a bit of extra help with the cost of living challenge by making everyday items just that little bit cheaper.
But you're only looking at, what'd you say, 30 million for a lot of, what is it, 300 or 500 products out there? What are you going to save, what, 10 or 20 cents? Seriously, mate, they better come up with better offers than this rubbish that they're coming up with to give people a cost of living out there just a little bit more room to move.
There's Jackie Lambie on Sky News earlier. The Treasurer also moving on another front. This is pre-budget, but trying to get one of his other earlier budget measures through on tax.
And it remains stalled at the moment. This is the changes to the petroleum resource rent tax that affects the big oil and gas giants. Labor trying to raise more revenue and get it into the coffers sooner, but it's stalled in the Senate. The Greens say the government needs to go much tougher. The Coalition want a series of things, including cutting green tape for these big resource projects. Well, on that front, the Treasurer today willing to play ball, saying they are going to make changes to exempt existing applications for projects from the new environmental regulation changes. But it doesn't seem at this stage it's been enough to win over the Coalition. This is the Treasurer.
Unfortunately, our opponents have sought to delay and complicate these changes. They've been dashing off letters to me and making threats, and this has created unnecessary uncertainty. And that's why in recent days I've written back to the Shadow Treasurer and to Senator McDonald regarding the PRRT, to assure them that some of the changes to environmental approval processes that they are seeking to negotiate are already happening for their own good reasons and not as a bargaining chip in the Senate.
So they're currently communicating via letters. The Treasurer writing back, I'm told that was received last night. Angus Taylor not ready to provide his response. This is what he said. He says it's taken 3 Labor ministers over 100 days to respond to the Coalition's offer. They're saying they're going to look through the details and get back to the government in due course. The Treasurer wants this passed, Kieran, as soon as possible because they want this certainty locked in that they will be able to raise this revenue. The risk for the Coalition waiting too long as they deal themselves out of the discussion and then Labor goes to deal with the Greens. That will be politically tricky for the Labor government, but he wants this change through, so he's going to have to consider all his options. He
wants it done before the next budget, which looks like it is heading for another surplus, doesn't it? They're not confirming that, but that's where Jim Chalmers wants the discussion. And if the rates start to come down later in the year, interest rates, they can say, well, look, we've been responsible, the 2 surpluses in a row for many years.
Yeah, and you can see the framing of this, the Treasurer's language in the last week or so, shifting from a focus on inflation, fighting inflation. That's meant they've had to restrict all the spending to longer-term growth, Kieran, talking about going to need to put measures in the budget, this one coming up, that are going to grow the economy. So the potential carrot there that we will see some more potentially cost of living assistance, stimulus coming out in May.
Coming out in May and then spending into the election next year. Just finally another election coming, the by-election in Cook.
Yeah, the by-election in Cook, the date confirmed today by the Speaker of the House that if you're in this southern Sydney electorate of Cook, you're going to have to head to the polls. I think it's April 13 is the date for this. At this stage, it doesn't look like Labor's necessarily going to run a candidate, so it will essentially be a non-event Simon Kennedy, the Liberal candidate replacing Scott Morrison, will get up. He'll be able to join the backbench ranks here in Canberra and likely, given the timing, to be able to do that around the May budget.
Indeed, it looks like not much news on that front. Liberals hold it by over 10%. Will continue to hold it. Trudy, thank you as always. Appreciate it.